Now, we talked last night, and I said, it seems to me that they knew that they would build him up as this messianic leader, and then they study societal movements, individual psychology, mass psychology. The architects know that he would then not deliver the milk and honey and the restored economy and the end of torture, the end of wars, with his advisors and who put him in power. They were always planning to not deliver any of his promises and then politically destroy him. And you concurred with me, so I want you to expand on your view. What was their plan for Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Obama, and what does their master plan encompass for the nation and for their front puppet? More balkanization, more division, selling Africa on AFRICOM or AFRICON being set up. I mean, what's the overall program with Plan Obama?
Well, you know, the CIA regularly uses people who are called futurists. Now, this isn't the weird kind of thing where people look into. These are subject area experts who try to look to see where technology, where politics, where population, where demographics will be 20, 30 years into the future.
And they seek to steer it. They seek to already know what people are going to want to do, where culture is going to bring them, so they can be pre-positioned to dominate those systems. That's what Google is.
So if we go back in time to 1960, we're looking at the CIA looking at the demographic changes of the United States. Increasing African-American population. I don't think they really banked on the increase in the Hispanic population. Obviously, that came later. But
well, wait a minute. It's come out that the Ford Foundation, billions, Bill and Melinda Gates, tens of millions, to Mecha and La Raza, Ford Foundation going back 60 years, creating those groups.
Right. Well, I think the one thing, because of the civil rights movement, they were looking at, look, Martin Luther King was the leader of the African-American movement, the people in this country. He broke with Johnson in '67 over Vietnam, steered very hard to the left, and as a CIA, I'm sure said, God, we can't, if we're going to get a leader, we can't have a Malcolm X, we can't have a Martin Luther King Jr., we have to make sure that when we have one, in line to become president, somebody that we can basically control.
Let me back you up. Margaret Sanger in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, on record in public letters with the Rockefeller Foundation saying we've got to pose as liberals, get the black leaders in place so we can abort most of them, and they've been successful. 51% of blacks never make it out of utero. They're murdered in the womb. So they did that. And they talk about controlling black leaders by financing them. So we know that that's their strategic plan. And Martin Luther King got off the reservation, so they took him out.
Well, absolutely. And so you look back in 1960, and is it beyond the pale to consider the fact that they may have wanted to groom somebody from a very early age, like a baby? You've got his parents and his grandparents basically in their pocket. And then you've got this stuff about behavioral science work at the University of Hawaii. There's just so many gaps in the histories of not only the president, but also his mother, his father, his grandfather, and his grandmother on his mother's side. So when you see gaps like that, now you look at any other president, those families we knew way too much. My God, Roger Clinton, Billy Carter. But in this case, we have these significant gaps in their histories, and I think that's something that people should be concerned about.
Wayne, I think that's the key that you just hit on. You have all this effort to cover up the past. You've got CIA connections to your left, your right, forward, and backwards at every level. You have got the fact that they've spent so much time, not just in the present, but going back decades, covering up his true providence and where he comes from. And then, as you said, all these intelligence and corporate intelligence and foundation connections. And now he's the president. And we know they had these programs to go in, not just here, but all over the world and recruit leaders. I mean, the British recruited Hitler. That's declassified in the mid-20s and took him from nowhere and funded the National Socialists to make him their leader. And the Milner Group bragged, we're going to build this guy up and he's going to tear Europe up. And then we're going to be able to come in and rebuild it and take it over. I mean, this is their long-term strategic thinking. And when you look at Obama and everything he's done, it's clear this guy is a total betrayer of everything he claims to be.
Well, you remember last November when old man Bush, HW 41, and Jeb Bush paid what was called a courtesy call to the White House. We were not even told what that was about, a courtesy call. That's all we were told. Well, you know, you've got the guy who the CIA headquarters is named after, and his son visiting Obama, and it's just, oh, we were in town, we thought we'd stop by. Look, that doesn't happen at the White House. I mean, those Salahis aside, you don't get into the White House unless you have a reason to be there.
So, I mean, obviously you're saying their plan was to have a controlled asset who was supposedly African-American in there. That's clear. But how is their plan going? I mean, did they mean for him to be a messianic leader and be successful? And has their attempted launch of this African-American Napoleon failed? Or did they plan to just use him as a distraction and then destroy him?
Well, I think he's given them everything they want. Look, Operation Iraqi Freedom is now Operation New Dawn. I mean, right out of George Orwell's Newspeak lexicon, we're shown pictures of convoys leaving Iraq. 50,000 troops are going to stay, and we're going to see an increase in contractors. What's that all about?
By the way, I have the New York Times today on that. They say, oh, private contractors and intelligence operatives will now run the government. So this is a practice run for the U.S. and other countries where they don't just stage coups, they come in and put in their entire apparatus through these giant armored embassies and control everything and just have plainclothes death squads running the nation.
Well, that's right. And look what Obama, right after he comes in, he allows the CIA to overthrow President Zelaya in Honduras. He wants to build 7 military bases in Colombia, and the Constitutional Court of Colombia just shot that down. So, you know, what Obama wants to do is now being shot down by the court in Colombia. I mean, this guy is owned lock, stock, and barrel by these intelligence, the intelligence community, because he's not said no to them ever. I mean, Patriot Act still in effect. We have increase in electronic surveillance. We got these deals between the CIA and Google and NSA and Google and Microsoft and everything else. And so he's allowing. He ran on openness. The Freedom of Information Act is still not being implemented. It's still backlogged. Requests are not being honored. So, I mean, everything he ran on, he has lied on very fundamental constitutional issues. And we were told that he taught constitutional law at the University of Chicago Law School. I don't know which law he was teaching, because when you look at his actions, it looks like he's teaching the Constitution of North Korea, not of the United States of America.
You know, I'd laugh, but it isn't funny. This is really happening. And, I mean, this is really the private offshore corporate takeover of society. They're setting up their fusion centers run by the CIA in every major city. They're federalizing the police. They're training U.S. SWAT teams in Iraq for cordon, for shutting down cities, for gun confiscations. At the G20 in Pittsburgh, my employee got arrested, Rob Dew. He saw people being let off trucks with bags on their heads. The Army would then, when they had to go to the bathroom, to follow them and then make fun of them. And this was all encouraged, like something right out of 1984. And they had private snatch and grab teams in front of news cameras on purpose, grabbing activists, putting bags on their heads. Now it happened in Toronto. Same thing in England. They are globally deploying a scientifically developed corporate oppression, a corporate black op tyranny. And, I mean, clearly this is the complete shadow takeover, and now it's out in the open. I mean, this is so illegal, Wayne.
Well, let me say another thing about Obama. You know, he's has had scheduled 2 trips to visit Indonesia. Both trips have been postponed. I think he knows that when he arrives in Jakarta, the Indonesian press, some foreign press, will start looking at his time there, and I don't think they want that kind of attention on that, and I think that's one reason. Now, he's always said he's had other priorities. I think the oil spill was one reason.
Well, no, that's another issue, Wayne. You keep bringing up great points. It's admitted he was in Indonesia longer than he said. Then he lied about being in the Muslim school. It's fine if he's a Muslim, but why lie about it? I mean, everything he's ever told us is a lie. You went over that earlier. I mean, when the parents met, when the grandparents met, when all this happened, we learned it's all a fiction.
Well, and the other thing I discovered is when they were, before they went to Hawaii, they were in Mercer Island, Seattle, in the state of Washington, and I did find in a list of these CIA people, the name of the chief engineer for Boeing, and his area of primary assignment was Mercer Island. Now, Madeline Dunham worked for the Boeing Corporation during World War II in Wichita, Kansas, so he's the only guy listed with the agency in Mercer Island. We got to figure the time frame here. You could conspiracy or coincidence, but I think that's much more than a coincidence.
But we know his father's involved in all these secretive activities. Now Obama's involved with Odinga, having the Muslims riot to create the prime ministership for him. I mean, just everything Obama does is dastardly. Everything he does is skullduggery laced. And it's just at every turn. And then there's the secrecy. And so I think you've conclusively proven that the media has been involved in a cover-up of this guy's true history, and everything we know about Barry Soetoro is a complete stinking lie. Final segment straight ahead with Wayne Madsen, wayne-madsen report.com. Our site's at gcnlive.com.